Dear Lord, thank you so much for so many things. For the leaders gathered here this evening, for those in our community. I want to say a special prayer for Jessie Cross, a young lady that passed away recently who has been battling cancer. Our prayers go out to her and her family. I know there's a great many people in our community dealing with that. She definitely kept a great attitude and brought a light to many people as she fought the fight. We thank you for the rain and giving our firefighters some needed support on the many fires that are going on around the state. We ask for your guidance and your wisdom as we convene the city's business this evening. In your son's name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. Next on the agenda, we have communications. Anything, Mr. City Manager, you wish to communicate?
I do not.
Okay. Next up is citizen input and community announcements. So if there's any community members that want to address the council on any non-agenda items, now would be the time to do so. Any public announcements, things that you want us to comment on. I have a couple yellow cards. If you have a yellow card that you want to fill out, please fill that out and bring it over to Mr. Lindsay, our city attorney, who's playing city recorder today. First up this evening, I've got Carol Palmer talking about the Historic Review Board. Hey.
So what's coming around to you is a flyer reminding all of you that this Saturday at Baker Prairie Cemetery, we will be there as part of the Solve Beach and Riverside Cleanup Program, cleaning grave markers, and all the supplies are in. We're very ready, and we would love to have some more volunteers. We've got, I think, about a dozen now, but we can use more. So please tell your friends, your family, and we would love to see all of you. Also, just passing around, this is the Spanish language version of our new brochure, and we're getting those distributed around to the places where we typically distribute them. So they're in the library, they're now at the chamber. I have a couple more. I have a stack in my car I've got to deliver all over town, but I wanted you folks to just see that. So that's it for me.
I'm glad you said something because I grabbed it and I immediately put it down thinking it was
the old one.
The old one, but this is fantastic. Thank you, Carol.
You bet.
How many volunteers do you have right now for Saturday?
I think we've got, I'm counting a dozen. I've got my fingers crossed for about a dozen. So. And
how many headstones are we replacing, or? We're
just repairing. I think last time I was here, when Jamie and I were here, the headstone repair had not been completed. It is complete. Every headstone is now intact, erect. It is, looking good. So, and hopefully the rain will help, turn it from brown to green. So, and hopefully it's on a slush, pile when we get there. We're not just in mud.
Perfect. Well, thank you for your efforts and everything you've been doing to get this cleaned up and preserve a tremendous part of our community. So thank you for that. Yeah. Next, is it Chris Mortz? Sorry, Getz. Pardon me? Sure can. Lainey, you get to go first.
Good evening, Mayor and councilors and staff. I am Lainey Faust, president of the Ask Me Local 356, which represents the City of Canby employees. I am here this evening with members of the Local 350 and members of the community who support us. As you know, we have been engaged in contract bargaining with the city, but we have reached an impasse, and now we're going to mediation because we cannot come to an agreement. One of the biggest sticking points is the language that would raise some employees' health insurance payments by 91% on January 1st. Others would be paying 87% more and 89% more. We understand that healthcare costs are a problem, but such a large and sudden increase blows a big hole in the family budget. It also means employees have less money to spend in our local economy. It means fewer stops at the coffee shop, fewer trips to the movie theater, and fewer dinners at local restaurants. I have with me postcards that the residents of Canby, some of the residents of Canby who are supporting us have signed, and they're for you, Mayor. As the City Council, you give the city's bargaining team direction. We ask you to direct your team to work with us to resolve the outstanding issues that are keeping us from reaching an agreement. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Amy. And then, so after Chris, after you speak, I think Rick has a couple of comments for on the matter here for us as well. Thank you for these. I appreciate that. So, Chris, I'll turn it over to you, sir.
My name is Chris Getz, work for Public Works. The healthcare costs that are going up are extreme. I have 2 little girls at home, a wife and a mother-in-law that live with me. I'm a single income earner, $58,000 a year. The proposed healthcare costs are $2,400 a year. For me, that's the difference between paying my electric bill or putting food on the table for my family. So I'm urging you to please think of the group that I'm at, because there's no way for me to offset the cost. I'm tapped out where I'm at, and there's just, we need to have some sort of solution to make this a little bit easier for everybody. Thank you for your time.
Yes.
I do appreciate the comments that have been made this evening. I know it's not easy to sit before the council and the mayor and share your thoughts and feelings. So I appreciate what you've shared with us today. The meet and confer process is, as it's intended to be, a process. It brings 2 parties together, management on one side and the represented bargaining unit on the other side. We have gone through an extensive process, reached a tentative agreement that was not ratified by the bargaining unit. At a subsequent meeting, we weren't able to make adequate progress to provide the opportunity for the bargaining unit to bring back to their membership a proposal that the labor representatives from AFSCME felt was appropriate. And so we reached an impasse. Upon impasse, the city requested mediation. Mediation is intended to bring an independent individual to the table without an interest on either side, either for management or for the employees, in an attempt to bring the parties together to an agreement that will meet the needs of each of the parties. One thing about the collective bargaining process is that, and I have been engaged in this process for over 30 years, is that in the end, nobody is perfectly happy. But through the process, both parties begin to understand the challenges and the obstacles to a successful relationship, and that the relationship between, in this case, between management and the employees. And we do very much respect and appreciate the employees represented by each of our bargaining units who work within and for the city. And we know that you do a wonderful job. I don't think there's any question about that. I'm hopeful that through the balance of the collective bargaining process, the next step being mediation, that we will be able to come to an agreement that will meet the needs of the city and address the issues of the bargaining unit. I will be very honest and say we have a ways to go. But I'm optimistic that if the parties come together with an open mind and clear intent, that we do have an opportunity to accomplish something.
Rick, do we have a timetable in terms of when is mediation going to occur? How long is that going to last?
The mediation is scheduled for, it's either the 2nd or 3rd of October. The 3rd of October, and that's scheduled as an all-day session. Depending on how that goes, there could be subsequent sessions. I think that the tone and tenor and the success achieved by the mediator in the first session will dictate the next step in this process.
So we're looking at, in terms of our involvement again, probably not until November.
I would anticipate that we would bring information to you following that mediation session, that you'll be in an executive session to discuss the outcome of the mediation and to look at next steps at that point.
On this?
I'll do a point of order here on what our role should be. I've not been in a labor situation that has gone to impasse before, so I don't know what my role as a board member is. Have we engaged in a legal process now that we have to wait? We have no role until after the mediation is completed?
You will have a role in the decision process as policymakers. If a proposal is developed that we'll have you in closed session in any case to describe to you our current position relative to the success or failure of the mediation process. And we'll sit down at that time with you. We'll go through all of the issues that are still outstanding and pending. We'll provide recommendations to you with a range of options should you not choose to take the recommendations, and then we'll outline to you what the probable next steps will be under any of a number of different scenarios. And the process does provide at a policy level for you in a situation like this, for you to provide to a specific direction. Typically, it's been my experience throughout my career that direction is weighed somewhat heavily based on the outcome of the ongoing collective bargaining process and the willingness of the parties to work together to achieve an agreement that meets the needs of both.
Rick or Joe, on this, are we still in a phase where we're not allowed to even make a statement about this whole thing publicly?
You know, it really depends on the statement. The way that you want to be guarded is to not discourage, union activity and not discourage a pure process, which is to bargain in good faith and then to go forth with an open mind into mediation. So you can always make statements, right? But what you want to be careful of is if that statement then has some sort of effect, whether it be a chilling effect or a potentially legally problematic effect on the process itself. So you're safer not to make too many statements and just let the process go through first. And to piggyback off of Rick's idea, you guys are the final decision body. You are, and you give your contracting agent, the ability to sign or not sign on the final contract. So you will have all the options in front of you eventually to make a decision on what you want to do and how you want to contract or not. So if that helps.
And I would say that I typically give my bosses throughout my careers a somewhat strong suggestion that the meet and confer process is akin to a marathon, and it has stages in it, and we step through those stages, and it's important to realize that the race isn't over until it's over. And if both parties are at the table, if we're making progress, if we haven't dropped out of the race, either by deed or action, that relative to the race itself, you are participants at a point, but for the most part, you're watching and rooting for both sides and hoping that that everybody crosses the finish line in a manner that meets the needs of the community and of the persons sitting at the representing the interest sitting at the bargaining table. That's a long-winded way of saying I kind of discourage making public statements until we get to a point where all of the options have been exhausted.
Great questions, thank you. Brian Lally, want to make a comment as well on this matter? Thank you. Hi, Brian, how are you?
You may recall I spoke with you last time at a meeting, and I just wanted to kind of give maybe a point of view from my side of the table as far as the board's role, et cetera. As the elected officials of the City of Canby, in my mind, you have the ability to choose to. You are the ones who are overseeing this city and those who provide the administration and the work on a daily basis. So, in my opinion, and I believe I'm on pretty solid ground here, you have the ability to intervene and or guide your bargaining team at any time you choose. Thank you.
That is true, but I would need to point out that that is only within the context of an executive session that is duly agendized, and absolutely you do. We take our direction from you, but as a majority of as you're sitting in as you're in your capacity of a city council and mayor, and we don't take advice from you individually.
Which has been big.
So I've noticed.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you all for being here this evening, and for those of you that spoke and shared your thoughts on where things are at. I appreciate it very much. That helps us definitely. So timeline, I think, laid out so that we can know where we're going to end up and how this will play out here over the next couple of months. So know that we are here to listen. We are here to help lead this to a, hopefully an amicable resolution. So we will work closely with Rick, and I believe Amanda is the handling them some of the negotiation side. So we will be working through them on this matter. So thank you very much. Yellow card, so we'll move into mayor's business. A couple of things on the Clackamas County Coordinating Committee front. Next month's meeting, or our next meeting, I will bring for you guys the bylaw for review and ask for your collective agreements on those so that I can take them back to C4 to, I guess, have them voted on and as is. Also, we've set out our work agenda for the year, heavy on transportation, which is what C4 was originally put together to try to tackle, and housing is the two major topics for this year that will be garnering a lot of C4's focus. There will be a letter coming to you, Rick, and then subsequently, I believe, probably to us regarding our involvement in support of a housing needs assessment that the county is looking at doing. A couple of our communities, Wilsonville, Milwaukee, and I want to say Oregon City, have independently done a housing needs assessment. The county is looking at doing a larger overall one, so we're trying to, and I can address that more when that comes in front of us in terms of why we're doing it, what it's going to do for us, and how we as a city should be doing or should have this as part of our to-do list coming up. So that'll be, unless you've already received that letter.
No, I haven't received it yet, but I am looking forward to something that we are really interested in pursuing.
A big piece with it, Rick, I think when it comes across is the amount of staff time it's going to take. My understanding is that it can be involved, and so they're trying to do a lot of pre-work so that it's not as taxing on staff.
Right.
And I know that we're thin, and we have only so many irons that we can put in the fire at one time. So that'd be a conversation I think that we all will have to have when that comes around. The Region 1 Act that I am involved in, at our last meeting, we're having heavy conversation in preparation for the next STIP planning process, so the State Transportation Improvement Plan. That's generally a lot of the rural cities in Clackamas County. That's really their only shot at funding sources for road improvement projects or enhancements. So we had a lengthy 2-hour conversation on how that's based on the new transportation bill, what are the different buckets that are going to be available, how they're going to be divvied out. We also had Metro weigh in, wanting to have much more control over the process, as well as much more control over the money. So needless to say, that created some heated conversation and much heated follow-up to come, I'm sure. On the Metro Mayor's Consortium, we had a presentation from Metro about land use and where they're headed in terms of land use planning for basically all 3 counties. So again, that was a very heated conversation, and then that was followed up with their desire to expand the food scrap recycling. So they already do countertop food scrap recycling for residential, and they're looking to do that and implement it for restaurants within the metro area. We are outside of metro, so that doesn't necessarily impact us in that sense, but it is something that will be an interesting conversation topic and coming up. The Greater Portland Inc. and Small Cities group that I participate in, again, just this meeting was a lot about looking at the work plan for the next 12 to 14 months. Again, heavy focus on economic development and what's kind of being drawn into Oregon and how the small cities are working together to promote the region. And I had the opportunity to tour the West Lynn Paper Company a couple of weeks ago. It was very, very impressive. So their whole point of they're seeing and hearing about everything that's happening on the other side of the river with Oregon City, and are very much interested in trying to figure out what part of that whole stretch of really truly island that they can redevelop, possibly sell off, and get on this development bandwagon that's going on. There's currently 200 employees there. In its peak, they had 2,500 employees that would come onto that island there to run the paper mill. Interesting piece is that they are producing more paper products now than they did when they had 2,500 people. So it was an amazing facility. Machines are deafening when you're down in the basement watching them go, but it was very, very impressive. And they've got a couple of buildings along there that they're looking to maybe sell off and have redeveloped. They've got 3 exceptional views of the waterfall and the river. I think almost better than what's on the Oregon City side. So there's some real, I think, some genuine opportunity. So a lot of, I think I correlated to in Bend, the mill area, the mill district that Bend kind of redeveloped and turned into restaurants and shops, kind of that same vibe that a couple of the buildings have. So lots of history there and whatnot. So it was a great tour, and they're really working on some neat things. So that concludes my report, and we'll start with Councilor Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. Fire District meets next Wednesday. Planning Commission has not met since our last meeting, but I did go to the French Prairie Forum today. It was mostly a discussion on agriculture. Congressman Schrader came to the last part. There were a number of state agricultural professionals from the state agencies that were there wanted to talk with him. I don't think there was any actual farmers that were there. But some of the things to note, there's a lot of conversation, particularly, in the metro area about these big businesses and these industries, and they want to have these big businesses come in, but we sometimes forget how big Oregon's agriculture is. There's, last year was $5.5 billion in agricultural production. Oregon was #1 in the United States in blackberries, boysenberries, hazelnuts, orchard grass seed, ryegrass seed, crimson clover, red street clover, fescue, potted azaleas, sugar beet, rhubarb, Christmas trees, #2 in a whole bunch of categories. Just greenhouses and nurseries alone did $909 million last year. So there's a lot of nice things that you can do with a beautiful farm and some people to work the crops that gainfully employ people, pay them plenty wages. I mean, right now hazelnuts are going boom. It's a huge hazelnut boom right now. It's a huge hop boom right now. So there are plenty of things that people can do for a living if they are in those industries and want to be in those industries. And that was, a couple other things from the meeting. No, wasn't really that important for us as a city.
Thank you, sir. Councilor Parker.
Well, Carol Palmer, as usual, does most of the heavy lifting. Today I was going to talk about the Baker Prairie Cemetery cleanup, but she did that fine. My other committee, the Bike Committee, canceled last month, ironically, because at least one of the members was out on a bike ride. So we may be meeting this month, if the weather's poor. Mayor, thanks for telling us about that housing discussion. I think it is appropriate to have housing discussed on a regional basis, because to have a housing needs discussion here in Canby alone is odd, because most of our new housing isn't going for people who already live here. We're building houses for people to move here. So how do we poll people who need housing in Canby? Do we go to Portland and say, do you need a cheaper place to live? Okay, then we've completed our report. Where's my $30,000 consultant fee? So it's an interesting question of who's going to need housing and what type of housing. Because a lot of us still have this feeling that when we talk about housing, we're talking about people who are here, people who can have affordable housing and that sort of thing. So keep us up to date on whatever that means. On Saturday, I went to the opening of one of our new businesses, Secret Garden in the Graham Building. And just to geek out a little bit on Main Street theory, one of the problems that Canby has, along with a lot of other cities our age, is that the buildings are too big to make a profit. You need as small a footprint as you can, especially when you're paying $2 a square foot. And you need to have horizontal partnerships selling other people's stuff. And that's exactly what the Secret Garden is doing. They've got flowers, they've got Kathleen Christensen soaps in there, a number of vendors that are in there. And it's a nice, tidy little footprint. So if you want to take a look at what the future of cities is going to look like, try the Graham Building. And then the West Lynn Paper Company, that's fascinating. They're producing more paper than ever before with fewer people.
Mm-hmm. Modernization.
Yeah. That's it, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Councilor Hensley.
Actually, Mr. Mayor, I don't have anything this week. Thank you, though.
Great. Council President Dale.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, along with some other members of the council, attended the 9/11 ceremonies at Canby Fire Department on 9/11. And very good job on your speech, sir. It was, it's always a very moving and poignant ceremony.
Very much so.
Thank you for doing that. On the Canby utility front, they have selected their builder for their new facility at 4th and Pine. The company name is 2G
and they are well experienced in that size of a facility and have worked with the architect group McKenzie many times. They're still anticipating an early summer completion date, and we can look forward to that. They'll have an open house. And really good news for everyone who's a ratepayer in the city of Canby. Bonneville Power Administration has been very kind to its customers. For the next 2 years, they've proposed a very modest rate increase, and so the Canby Utility Board is proposing only a 2% rate increase, and they will be having rate hearings coming up momentarily. I believe October is when their first rate hearing is, so we have some pretty good news on our power bills for the next couple of years. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilor Height. Hello.
Yes, hello. So the library board had an interesting meeting. I have a few things to share. So they enjoy having the IT department upstairs. Irene Green, our director, reported. It's nice because it's quick. If there's a problem, boom, it's right upstairs. It's not walking down the block like it was before we built this building. So that's just another reason why this has been a great project. But so they're, yeah, appreciating that. And also she noted that Direct Link in the city she thinks has a better relationship now. I think maybe it's after they donated the computer stations to the library, but she's appreciating the Direct Link relationship. It's always good to build relationships with community partners. So that was a positive too. She also said that, you know how she gave her PowerPoint presentation at the last meeting for our library proclamation? Mm-hmm. She said the sound didn't work. There was supposed to be sound. I didn't really realize that. I thought, oh, a silent presentation. But she was kind of mortified. She said, oh no, it didn't work. So if you want to listen to the full presentation with sound, it's on the library website. There's a link. So anyway, and it was pretty cool. She played it at the board meeting. It was neat. Kind of gave the emotional impact. So anyway, I thought she gave a pretty good presentation without the sound, but there you go. The self-check kiosks are going pretty well. Patrons, there hasn't been really any complaints. People are slowly figuring it out. It takes a little time to figure out which button you're pushing, but we're a pretty savvy, I think, high-tech-ish community, so we're figuring that out. There's a Russian story time offered now on Thursdays. You know, there's one in English, one in Spanish weekly, and now Russian, so they're expanding to that direction to reach those citizens. So I'm not sure who's doing it, but yay for whoever that is. That's good outreach. There is a new library staff member to look for when you go in. Her name is Marissa Stoltz. She'll be working 25 hours per week. I haven't met her yet, but we'll look to meet her. And I learned that the Women's Heritage Trail, this might be something Councilor Parker knows about, you know, with our Carol Palmer and Historical Review Board. We've got this Women's Heritage Trail. Apparently we're the first municipal Women's Heritage Trail is what Irene Green said. So I guess it's associated with, you know, us as a municipality. If you learn more though, Greg, let us know.
With Carol, we're going to be the first of a lot of things.
Yes. Yeah, so we'll keep our ears peeled for that. But that sounded neat. And this is interesting to report. You know that there's a family that donated the fireplace in the new library. Their name was the Mulick family, and it was in honor of John, who was kind of the patriarch that passed away. But apparently they had a birthday party celebration in there recently. Generations of this family came and did kind of like a send-off, sort of a birthday party. I don't know if any city staff was involved with that or privy to it at all, but it sounded neat.
Yeah, we kind of helped set it up. Our construction staff have been, particularly Amanda, have been in very close communications with the Mulick family from the day that they offered the donation, and so we worked with them to let them see how the fireplace was going to look, what the features were going to be, and coordinated with them so that they could have this very nice family event at a time that they could have the library to themselves. So yeah, we've been pretty involved in it.
And then the Library Foundation is having their second annual Film Fest over here next door at the cinema, and that's Wednesday, October 4th. It's during our council meeting, actually, next time, 6:30 to 8 p.m., 15-minute long, Oregon producers or filmmakers. I don't know if there's any local Canby folks, but hopefully there will be some of our folks that have created some films. So it's $10 pre-sale, I think 15 at the door. So I'm glad they're doing that again as a fundraiser. And then I wanted to give a shout out to Susan Joy of Retro Revival. She's partnered with the Friends of the Library there and is selling some books, some kind of high-end collector's items, books at her store, and giving the Friends commission. And she's earning a lot of money for the Friends, so that's a really nice partnership. So thanks to Susan Joy. And one question for Rick, are we going to plant that tree out there soon? What should we call it?
We are going to plant
Okay.
that tree out there soon. It'll be in the next couple of weeks, and we'll have it, it's an evergreen tree.
Okay.
And it's already been picked out, but the weather's just been so hot that it hasn't been safe to plant a tree. Since you mentioned it, we are also going to be dedicating the art exhibit that's going to be on the front of the building in early October. It'll be the first Friday in October as part of the First Friday event in downtown. And our goal is to have the tree up when we do the dedication of the artwork.
So that date is to be determined for the tree. It's kind of weather dependent, is that?
Well, it'll go in, our goal is to have it in advance of the First Friday event, so that it is there in its full glory at the same time that we won't necessarily dedicate it separately, but it'll be part of the larger celebration. It'll be in the plaza. That's our goal.
Is there a ceremony attached? Is it going to be in honor of somebody? That's kind of the word I had heard. Is that true?
Not a separate ceremony. We have a donor who donated $1,000, similar to what we had on all of our benches, are donated as well. Everybody that will have a name on a bench actually donated $1,000 to buy the bench. An individual, and it is in memoriam for a child who passed. And so that plaque is in progress. We hope that we have it done in time. If we don't, it's going to be up as soon as we do.
And then with the school board, their meeting is tomorrow, actually. But I wanted to give a kind of a community announcement. They're offering free heart screenings to students ages 12 to 18 on September 29th at the high school, all day long. So that's a nice service they're providing. And also there's a big fundraiser. You know, the Canby Ed Foundation has 2 yearly. They're one this fall. The Taste of Autumn is coming up October 7th, 6 to 9, $40 a ticket. And it's at the Three Sisters Livestock Farm off of Lone Elder. That's always a good time. That's a fun group. For the Northeast Neighborhood Association, the next planning commission will be a big one for them. They're planning on coming to that. They're interested in the 7-acre subdivision that's has been applied for North Maple Street there. And so they're, I've been receiving information about that. So expect that to be a big planning commission meeting. Tyler Smith, Councilor Smith, that'll be a big one on Monday. And then Bridging Cultures, I attended their meeting last week. They meet in the library, which is kind of neat. They're making use of that room. Basically, they're looking for new board members, so they discussed that, future fundraisers, and they talked about immigration policy a bit and how that's affecting their population. So political, as we know, a lot's going on politically in that arena, so they discussed that. The September 11th ceremony was nice. I'm glad I went to that, although I was there a short while, so good job speakers on that. And then lastly, Hope Village is hosting Senator Ron Wyden on Friday for a Clackamas County Town Hall. It's at 5 p.m. So hopefully a bunch of citizens will come out to Hope Village. Those of all ages are welcome, not just Hope Village residents, and let them know what you're thinking. So yeah, that's what I've got.
How often, Bridging Cultures meet every month?
Yeah.
Is it a set day?
I think so, and now I can't remember exactly what it is. But I can email you that, like look back at my calendar, the second Tuesday or something. Okay. Yeah.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, they'd appreciate that.
Absolutely. Great. Thank you. We'll move into the consent agenda this evening.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt the minutes of the September 6, 2017 City Council work session and regular meeting.
Second.
Motion's been made by Council President Dale and seconded by Councilor Hensley to approve the consent agenda, which include the adoption of the minutes of the September 6th, 2017 City Council work session and regular meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carries 6-0. Next on the agenda, we're moving into resolutions and ordinances. Joe, are you tackling that, or am I on my own there?
First up, you have ordinance number 1463 up for second reading. It's an ordinance amending the zoning map of the city of Canby.
Talking to the mic, please.
I forgot to turn it on, sorry. First up, you have ordinance number 1463 is up for second reading, which is an ordinance amending the zoning map of the city of Canby, Clackamas County, Oregon for tax lots 0503 and 0504 of tax map 4-1E-03BB.
Thank you, Joe. So last meeting, we had a public hearing and regarding the zone change presented by Peter Hostetler to move some housing or some parcels from low-density residential to medium-density residential. And then at the hearing, so yes, changed all that. There'd be sounds like a construction plan in place for some additional single-family homes. Any further details on that, Rick or Joe, or any questions from us here on that?
That was the future intent of doing this zone change. They don't currently have that very specific plan in place, but they are hopeful that they can do exactly what they're saying they're going to be doing in, I guess, the somewhat near future.
Will you entertain a motion then?
I will.
Okay. I move we adopt ordinance 1463, amending the comprehensive plan map and zoning map of the city of Canby, Clackamas County, Oregon for tax lots 0503 and 0504 of tax map 41E03BB.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion's been made by Councilor Height and seconded by Councilor Hensley to approve ordinance number 1463, an ordinance amending the comprehensive plan map and zoning map of the city of Canby, Clackamas County, Oregon for tax lots 0503 and 0504 of tax map 4-1E-03BB. For roll call vote, any further questions or comments?
Yeah, so Councilor Smith? Aye. Councilor Parker?
Aye.
Councilor Hensley?
Aye.
Councilor Dale?
Aye.
Councilor Height?
Aye.
Passes 5-0. Great job.
Thank you. Next up, we have ordinance, and also up for second reading, is ordinance 1467. It's an ordinance amending the Canby Municipal Code by repealing Chapter 2.90 regarding a municipal audit and financial oversight committee. This was after discussion between staff and council. This was a oversight committee that was created by our past financial director, and its duties won't be undone. They'll just be done now by the budget committee at large.
This was, so something we had in place. It's done its job, and we no longer need this particular committee, and so we'll take it out of the books.
Okay. We also think, I spent quite a bit of time with Julie Blums, our finance director, discussing this potential change in the moving of the responsibilities to the budget committee, and it seemed like actually a wonderful opportunity to combine some program areas that currently are separated between the two committees into one committee, and it will give, I think, a little bit more seamless process for those persons that serve on the budget committee, for all of you, and for our citizen portion of the budget committee. And I just think it'll be really helpful in understanding the overall budget and finance process, including the audit side of the city's budget process. I think it's a good change.
Are you ready for the roll call vote?
Well, let me make a motion first.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make that motion. I move that we adopt ordinance number 1467, amending Canby Municipal Code by repealing Chapter 2.90 regarding a municipal audit and financial oversight committee.
I'll second.
Now it's your turn, Joe.
Okay. The motion's been made by Councilor Hensley and seconded by Councilor Smith to approve ordinance number 1467, an ordinance amending the Canby Municipal Code by repealing Chapter 2.90 regarding a municipal audit and financial oversight committee for second reading and roll call vote. Any further questions or comments?
Okay, so Counselor Smith?
Aye.
Counselor Parker?
Aye.
Counselor Hensley?
Aye.
Counselor Dale?
Aye.
And Counselor Height?
Aye.
Passes 5-0. Great. Thank you, Joe. Next on the agenda under new business is findings, conclusions, and final order for zone change or ZC 17-01/CPA 17-01 Hostetler. So these are just the findings from the public hearing and from the change, correct, Joe?
Yes, so these go hand in hand with Ordinance 1463. These are the official findings, conclusions, and final order that allow you guys to adopt that particular ordinance.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the City Council accept the findings, conclusion, and final order of zone change 17-01 and comprehensive plan amendment 17-01 Hostetler.
Motion's been made by Council President Dale and seconded by Councilor Hensley for the council to approve the findings and conclusion and final order zone change 17-01 and comprehensive plan amendment 17-01 Hostetler. Any further discussion? No? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And that passes 5-0. Next on the agenda is City Administrative Business and Staff Reports.
I do have a couple issues to bring to your attention. The first, I appreciate Councilor Height's mentioning the library presentation. We also posted it on the city's main website for those persons who have trouble finding the library's website. They can find it on the city's main website as well. We thought it was just an excellent presentation and deserved a full show. We are currently recruiting for a confidential assistant program to assist the administration function that was approved by the Budget Committee and the City Council. That recruitment is ongoing. We're also recruiting for a Public Works Director. Again, that recruitment is ongoing, and we don't yet know what the outcome of either of those two recruitments will be. And we are also recruiting for more than one law enforcement officer. We're working on both current vacancies and what we expect to be some future vacancies. So working to establish an eligibility list, get people in the queue, and see if we can get those positions filled quickly. Relative to the Planning Commission public hearing, I had several conversations with Brian Brown through this week, and in trying to formulate and develop what would be a very kind of a challenging meeting, and then the counsel for the applicant, Sprague's, called today and requested that the hearing be rescheduled. So that will not be heard on Monday, and this is new information as of just today. Brian was really busy sending out notices to all of the residents that had received notice of the public hearing to let them know that this hearing was going to be rescheduled. The applicant had asked for a 2-week extension. In looking at the work required to bring it back to the agenda, it was looking more like we would need 4 weeks to accomplish it, plus the Planning Commission meeting 2 weeks from now has a very complex matter that's going to be, I think, fairly hotly debated and take up most of the evening as well. So that agenda was pretty much already full. So while I don't know the final outcome, I'm anticipating that it will be 4 weeks that the Sprague issue comes back to the Planning Commission. And as soon as we get more information on that, I'll send it out to each of you so that you have a definite time and date and can keep track of that. And that information, as I had indicated, has already gone out to, we needed to hit a mailing date of today, so Brian's been spending a good part of his day getting it out to those persons that would be directly impacted by the proposed annexation. We also are in the final stages of collecting RFEI's request for expressions of interest on our old library building. We'll be developing a summary of the proposals that we receive and bringing them to the Urban Renewal Agency, which is you, in your other capacity sometime in October. We have the date scheduled. I want to say it's the first meeting in October, but it could be the second meeting. I'd have to go back and clarify that. But sometime in October, we'll be presenting to you the summary of the requests, the proposals that we received in response to our request for expressions of interest. And finally, I do want to apologize and thank each of you for your flexibility. My absence at the last meeting was not anticipated. It was a last-minute thing, and I hate leaving in that type of a circumstance, but it was unavoidable. It was a personal issue that needed a father and a mother's attention, and so I want to thank you for your flexibility and understanding.
Absolutely, Rick. Yes, sir.
A couple questions for Rick, if I could, Mr.
Yep.
Mayor. Rick, the first one was, I think a meeting or two ago, we had a discussion, and I think just a consensus and not a vote, that we were going to send some sort of a letter to Clackamas County on the Parks District. And I don't think we ironed out the exact language of that, and you were going to write that up. Has that gone out? And can we get a copy of that?
It hasn't gone out yet. I developed a draft and forwarded a draft and of what I thought it could look like, and I will bring that back around again and sit down and have a conversation about it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Then the second one, and Council President Dale might know on this, but on Pine Street, did we do something different with code enforcement or something on Pine Street? Because all of the big rigs that had parked on the north side of Pine Street next to the Canby utility, which will be, are no longer parking there, and there's new signs up. Was that us, or how did that, does anybody know anything about that?
Well, we had posted some signs a while back.
Yeah, that was last year.
Yeah, it was last year, and I'm not aware of any. It would be unusual for those signs to be posted without my knowledge. So my guess and my assumption is that those are the signs that we had authorized probably about 6 months ago.
Okay. Well, they're suddenly being obeyed.
No trucks.
The other one was just with your last comment on the extensions. I've never asked Brian this, and I can if you don't know the answer, but do we require our land use applicants to waive their 120 and 150 day, or I guess it's 120 for us, timelines if they want to move over a hearing and have it later?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Later. Thank you.
Yeah. And just a quick point of clarification on the letter of to Clackamas County, it was actually, and I have prepared the draft, it was actually, as I recall, a letter to the district relating to our support or lack of support for their request for support. And I do have a draft of that prepared. I'll get it out and get it recirculated.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes. Rick? No? Okay. We'll move into the second piece, opportunity for citizen input. Seeing none, we'll move into action review. Joe?
Okay, you've approved the consent agenda, you've adopted ordinance 1463, and you've also adopted ordinance 1467. Well, and yes, you have also resolved to accept the findings, conclusions, and final orders.
Fantastic. Joe, do we have exec session this evening?
We have no exec session.
Okay. Before we adjourn, for the viewing audience, so every other month we get our bi-monthly staff report, and it is on the website. I highly recommend, if you want to know what's going on in each of the departments or get a better behind-the-scenes view of what's going on in the city, I recommend reading them. There is some great information in there from all of our department heads on what's going on, and it'll bring you up to speed on some of the projects that are going on and some of the things that each of the departments are working on. It's part of the council packet that's on the website, so please take some time and read through those if you're really interested in what's going on in the city. So that's my 2 cents for this evening. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Great. We are adjourned. Or sorry. Yeah, we should vote on it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone want to stay? No? All right.
Abstain.
Yeah, no abstentions. All right. That passes. We are done. Good night, Canby.
Abstain for a conflict of interest.
Right. I really don't want to go.